The banquet hall of the Celestial Cradle Space Station was a marvel of engineering and taste. Crystalline chandeliers pulsed with soft bioluminescent light. Tables were draped in fabric woven from the silk threads of Varian moon moths. The food was a curated symphony of 17 planetary cuisines, each dish prepared by chefs who had trained for decades under masters of galactic gastronomy. The music came from an ensemble of Dr. musicians whose instruments were made from the living wood of trees that only grew on a single moon orbiting a gas giant in the outer reaches. Everything was perfect. Everything was empty. Princess Luna of the Etherian Dominion sat at the head of the long table, still as carved marble, her opalescent skin catching the chandelier light. Her silver hair was pinned in the traditional royal style, 3 cascading loops held by pins made from her mother's old ceremonial armor. Her gown shimmered like the surface of a calm sea on a moonlit night. She had planned this gathering for 11 months. Every invitation had been accepted. Not a single guest had come. The politics of it were simple, even if the cruelty was not. The Etherian Dominion had recently signed a mutual trade agreement with humanity, a civilization that, by galactic consensus, was still considered dangerously unpredictable. They were too young, too chaotic, too variable. The elder races had not yet decided what to make of them, and so they had decided, quietly and without official announcement, to make an example. Attending Luna's celebration would mean endorsing her family's choice. No one was willing to risk that diplomatic cost, so they sent polite regrets, scheduling conflicts, health concerns, interstellar distances that were, conveniently, insurmountable this week. Luna had read every excuse. She had understood each one, and she had sat down at the head of this impossibly beautiful table and decided she would not leave until the party was over. She was a princess. She had her dignity. But dignity, she was learning, did not fill a room. The doors opened at the 47th minute of the first hour. Luna did not look up immediately. She assumed it was a servant, or perhaps a technician come to check the temperature controls. She had been staring at the elaborate centerpiece, a living sculpture of crystal flowers that bloomed and closed on a 6-minute cycle, and she was not ready to stop pretending the flowers were the most interesting thing in the universe. Then she heard footsteps. Unhurried. Unashamed. She looked up. He was human. That much was obvious from the first glance. Medium height, with the kind of lean, economical build that humans developed when they spent years doing physical work. His face was angular, weather-worn, with dark eyes that scanned the room the way a soldier scans unfamiliar terrain, not with fear, but with the particular alertness of someone who has learned that awareness is survival. He wore a simple, formal jacket, navy blue, with no insignia, no rank markings, no planetary affiliation pinned to his lapel. Just a man, dressed for an occasion, walking into a room full of empty chairs and exquisite food, as though he had always intended to be here. His name, Luna would learn later, was Evan. He did not bow. He did not introduce himself. He walked, with complete calm, to a chair 3 seats down from her on the left side of the table, close enough to be in conversation range, far enough to give her space, and he sat down. Then he looked at the centerpiece and said nothing. Luna stared at him. He did not appear to notice. Or perhaps he noticed and did not care, which was somehow more disarming. "You are aware," she said, in the clipped formal register of High Etherian translated to Galactic Standard, "that this is a private function." "I got an invitation," he said. His voice was unhurried, conversational. "The invitations were for," she stopped. "Thought. You received a formal invitation? Your cultural attaché sent them to every dignitary and diplomatic representative registered on the station." He glanced at her for the first time, and his expression was neutral in a way that felt, oddly, like respect. "I'm the human trade liaison. 3rd class. Not exactly what you'd call a dignitary." A small pause. But the invitation didn't say anything about minimum rank. Luna looked at him for a long moment. "No," she said quietly. It did not. He nodded, once, and looked back at the centerpiece. The crystal flowers were closing now, their petals drawing together in slow, geometric elegance. "Those are beautiful," he said. "They are from the greenhouse gardens of Vela Moria. The crystals grow from a specific mineral solution and respond to the ambient emotional resonance of a room." She paused. "They bloom when there is joy. They close when there is sorrow. Evan looked at the closed flowers. Then he looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Not pity, she realized with relief. Not pity. Something older and quieter than pity. Then we should probably eat something, he said. I've heard food helps. It was, without question, the strangest dinner Luna had ever attended. There were 2 of them in a hall designed for 200. The musicians, bless their professional hearts, continued to play. The servants, bless their training, continued to serve. Course after course arrived, and Evan ate with the focused appreciation of someone who had, at some point in his life, known genuine hunger and had never quite forgotten what food meant. He did not pepper her with questions about the Dominion. He did not perform fascination with her culture or try to demonstrate that he had done his research. He did not apologize for the other guests, or explain their absence, or offer diplomatic reassurances. He just ate, and occasionally said something. This is the best thing I've eaten in 4 years, he said, about a poached dish of very deep current fish in a broth that had been slowly reduced for 3 days. It should be, Luna said. The chef is considered the finest in 6 systems. Makes sense. He took another careful bite. You deserve the best. It was said with no particular emphasis. No flattery in it, no political calculation. It was the same tone he might use to observe that the food was warm or the music was pleasant. A simple statement of something he considered obvious. Luna found, to her considerable surprise, that her throat was tight. She picked up her own fork. They talked, eventually. Not about politics. Not about the trade agreements or the other race's diplomatic snubbing or what it meant for Etherian relations with humanity. They talked about the station, its history, the engineering decisions that had led to its distinctive hexagonal architecture. They talked about the Dr. Ivan musicians and the instruments they played, and Evan admitted he'd once spent 3 months on a Dr. Ivan vessel and had learned approximately 6 notes of their simplest traditional song before giving up. Luna laughed at this. A real laugh, not the careful social approximation she deployed at formal functions. They talked about what loneliness looked like from the inside versus the outside. Evan did not philosophize about it. He simply said that he had eaten alone in a lot of empty rooms, in a lot of faraway places, and that the trick was to find one thing that was genuinely worth your attention and give it your full attention. The flowers, Luna said, understanding. The flowers, he confirmed. The crystal blooms had, sometime in the last hour, begun to open again. When the final course was cleared, Luna sat for a moment in the quiet that followed. Why did you come? She asked. Not accusatory, genuinely curious. You knew what it would look like. A third-class liaison attending a royal celebration that every senior diplomat avoided. It could complicate your position. Evan considered this with the honest seriousness of someone who had already thought it through. Someone sent me an invitation, he said finally, to a party. And I hadn't been to a party in a long time. A pause. And I looked at the guest list, and I thought, someone went to a lot of trouble for this. 11 months of planning. The flowers. The music. The fish that took 3 days to make. He looked at her steadily. It seemed like the kind of thing worth showing up for. Luna walked him to the hall's entrance when the evening ended. She stood at the threshold, and she looked at this strange human, third-class liaison, uninvited by rank and invited by letter, who had eaten her food and listened to her music and watched her flowers open. And she felt something shift in her understanding of what the word dignitary was supposed to mean. Evan, she said. He paused. Thank you for coming to my party. He smiled at that, the first full smile she had seen from him, uncomplicated and real. Thank you for having it, he said. He walked away down the corridor, hands in his pockets, unhurried. The station lights caught the navy of his jacket as he rounded the corner and was gone. Behind Luna, in the empty banquet hall, the crystal flowers of Vellamoria were blooming fully. All of them, every last one. And the musicians were playing something that sounded, for the first time all evening, like celebration.